2019, and I'm here with Dave Decay.
That's me.
And Professor So-and-so.
So?
And we're here because we're reviewing the Universal horror movies. What's next up on the list?
Okay, so 1 year after Dracula and Frankenstein hit the theater the same year, now, the very next year, we got The Mummy.
And this is not the Mummy with the Brendan Fraser characters and that with the CGI and the Emotep and the gross scarab going up in the guy's cheek. That was disgusting.
Okay, I'll be honest here with you. This is one of the Universal films I was never really crazy about. And actually, I had never watched it that much to even kind of get into The Mummy, I guess you can say. It never like unwrapped me, is what I'm trying to say.
Ah, I see what you did there.
However, now every time I've seen The Mummy, it's always either been on TV or I've seen it a dozen times on Svengoolie, and it's always been sort of interrupted with commercials.
They have invaded.
I don't like this one bit.
They are everywhere.
They're all around us, we never knew it.
They are aliens.
We are being bred for slavery.
Open your eyes.
Take a look.
Join the fight.
Let's go!
Join Rowdy Roddy Piper.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick you. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
John Carpenter's They Live tonight at 8 on Channel 11, New York's movie station.
Or people talking or things like that. So that's kind of why it's kind of cool to watch these horror films like now, because you are actually watching the actual movie without any interruptions, and I think it flows a whole lot better when you can watch something without it being interrupted.
And I would have to agree with that. That was one thing when I was a small child watching these films. I also watched them on television. And I'd always thought the same thing of The Mummy. I wasn't too crazy about the film. And I found it quite boring compared to the rest of... it wasn't a Dracula. It wasn't as fascinating as Dracula or Frankenstein, or at least that's what I thought at the time.
Yeah, I don't think that the character itself of the Mummy was just that interesting of a character. However, now watching this on Blu-ray, I gotta say, I got blown away, Professor So-and-so, because this is the clearest, seriously, it is the clearest I have ever seen the Mummy. And when they reveal him, Boris Karloff, in the casket there at the beginning, I was blown away by the makeup. It was just incredible looking.
Well, yes, it was very nice. Very, very, very nice. As a doctor of science, I was quite enthused by the look of the Mummy.
So what you're saying, Professor, is you approve of the makeup that they created here for the Mummy.
That was makeup?
Now, what I really don't understand, actually, about the beginning of this film is Boris Karloff really didn't move that much. He opened his eyes up. So they could have just used a sculpture. I mean, I don't even know what the purpose was to putting all this makeup and all these bandages on him where he just kind of sat there and didn't move.
Because you had to believe that it was him, I guess.
The one thing that got correct in this is the mummy's curse. I believe there was probably a mummy's curse at some point.
And speaking of that curse, I have to say there was several things in this movie that is and does appear in the Brendan Fraser film that came out so many years later.
Example.
Not just the characters of Emotep and Axana Moon, but the curse of the Mummy itself is in that film. If you were to go back and see it, there is some recognizable things that go back to this classic.
Alright, so one thing I can say again, going back to the clarity of this Blu-ray, is when I've seen this film a few times, like I said, I haven't watched it that many times, but the few times I have seen it, it was been on network television, and when he walks out of there at the beginning of it, when he wakes up from being, the cursed mummy and he walks out, and they show him throughout the rest of the movie. You know what I thought he looked like?
A California raisin?
No, I thought he looked like Boris Karloff. I didn't really see the makeup that well, but now that it's on Blu-ray, you can see the incredible wrinkles and the detail in the makeup, so you can see that he actually does look like the Mummy. And I didn't really, I guess, get that because I never saw it that clear before.
He looked like he stayed in the pool too long.
Yeah, he's very wrinkly.
And I guess, again, being that I really haven't watched the film that much, or maybe even not even paid attention to it that much, is he didn't like people touching him because for the fact that he's basically made out of dust. So if you did grab him too hard, you know, his arm might fall off or something.
He's all bones.
The other thing I noticed is that there are a couple of scenes in here that later on in Raiders of the Lost Ark, as a matter of fact, they paid homage to.
It belongs in a museum.
Such as when the diggers are digging in the desert looking for Axanamun, that they are singing a song and they're digging into a well, so to speak, which is what they I would say paid homage to in Raiders of the Lost Ark, as they were looking for the Well of Souls, where the Ark of the Covenant was laid.
And I actually, watching this again, liked the whole backstory of the Mummy. I thought it was a really fascinating story, now that I was actually paying attention to what was happening, I guess, on screen. And the fact that his main squeeze there, the lady mummy, you know, she was basically reincarnated again because she didn't know who she was until he kind of, you know, woke her up and realized who she was. And one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when he came in there to acquire the pages that these people had, knowing full well they had them, he was going to go in there and get them. I love that whole sequence.
Well, yes, it was quite entertaining. I found this movie very entertaining, being able to watch it as one whole film.
Yeah, and I think it helped the movie a lot, watching it like that. And, you know, what really, really happened in this film, it projected, it skyrocketed Boris Karloff's career. Because first movie you have to think of was Frankenstein, when he was all in that crazy makeup and he didn't say a word. Now he's in The Mummy, he's actually playing a real role as he's speaking and he's being able to actually act here. And I think when the audience seen that, they were blown away by his acting ability because they didn't get to really see it in Frankenstein.
One other thing I noticed while watching this film is that on the other two films, Dracula and Frankenstein, they only played the Swan Lake song. They did also play it here as the beginning of the movie, but throughout the movie they had another soundtrack. They had another song that they played, and quite frankly, they also played it several times in some of the Three Stooges short films whenever they went to Egypt.
So 1 year after the original Dracula, they were starting to be able to put music in the film because it was really difficult. Because you got to think they're coming right out of talkies, or right out of silent films into talkies. So they were still experimenting with how to match up the actual voice to the people on the screen. It's probably very difficult back then. Not to mention trying to put some sort of dramatic music in there as well.
And what is also very good, as well as the makeup effects, is the special effects themselves. Although there's not many in this film, but the special effects that they did use are very innovative for that time.
Oh yeah, and I really love the close-up shots of him and his eyes when he's looking at people. You can really see the makeup effects there that they did, and it's just a great, really, really cool effect. And again, you know, being able to see him like that, now that it's so clear, it makes him character more interesting because before, I never understood why he was a mummy and then he was just a dude. He's walking around being a dude. I'm just like, okay, I don't get it.
Yeah, he looked as though he was someone you could hang out by the pool with.
Okay, well, you know, like I said, this used to be one of my least favorite Universal monsters, But now being able to watch it like this, I think, I've really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it a lot. I don't think it's still up there with Dracula or Frankenstein, so I am going to be giving The Mummy
And I too would also give The Mummy a 5 out of 5. I enjoyed the film. I enjoyed it immensely more than I did when I was a child. And I think I just understood the movie a lot more than I did back then.
Well, I really enjoyed The Mummy, and Boris Karloff was very good, even though he was wrinkly, and I think it's definitely one of the classics, and I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5. So that's it for The Mummy, and don't forget, tomorrow we will have another Universal horror movie, just like we will have every single day for the entire month of Horror Month for October. And also, if you like spooky video games, then make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you get notifications, because Dave and Becky will be live streaming every single night for the entire month of October. Spooky video games, and it's going to be great. So, until tomorrow, stay spooky.